The Way is a 2010 film written, directed and co-produced by Emilio Estevez. It tells the story of Tom Avery, an American ophthalmologist who receives a phone call one day telling him that his son Daniel has died in the Pyrenees. Now, Daniel was on the Camino de Santiago, an ancient pilgrimage route that travels across northern Spain. Now, I've watched the movie several times and I have to say that I'm impressed. There are a lot of scenes that bring back memories of my own Camino in 2022. Now, the film is not meant to be a factual documentary, and there are some scenes that I think are true to life and others that are just a little inaccurate and misleading. So as an experienced pilgrim, I'd like to list 10 things that I think that we can learn from The Way, and I'd like to start by the whole issue of thinking about preparation for the Camino. Now, when Tom is in St. Jean, he decides to walk the Camino de Santiago in the same way that his son Daniel had intended. But it's fair to say that he's not prepared for the journey ahead, physically and perhaps mentally as well. However, it's something that he feels compelled to do, and his purposes will become clear as the movie progresses. That's going to include learning about the Camino itself and also learning about life. It's also going to require some deep introspection and perhaps a changed view of the world. Now, in terms of equipment, Tom inherits Daniel's backpack, and when he opens it, he finds that he has a map, a guidebook, a headlamp, and also a blue rain jacket. He also finds out in a sleep-deprived night in Roncesvalles that perhaps earplugs would be a good thing to have as well. Tom doesn't have a gear list that he's prepared in advance. And I think this just goes to show that there's only so much preparation that we can do for the Camino de Santiago. It requires a sense of adventure and just going, as they say, with the flow of things. The movie, I think, can teach us something about respect. Respect for other people and also respect for ourselves. At one point, there's a beautiful long shot of Tom and his Camino companions walking through a yard of vines. Joost, the pilgrim from Amsterdam who's trying to lose weight, bends down and picks something up. When he's standing, we see that he has a bunch of grapes in his hand and he starts to eat them. Now, in my opinion, Joost has taken something that doesn't belong to him. Those grapes were not freely given. He took them. We must respect other people's property, and I think that that respect extends to ourselves as well. The question of where to sleep on the Camino often comes up in discussion forums. Now, in a movie, Tom, on his own and with his companions, sleeps rough on the Camino. And the film seems to suggest that you can do this freely, that you can set up your bed wherever you want or wherever you need to, and there will be no consequences for doing that. As I understand it, wild camping is unlawful in Spain, and I don't think that it should be encouraged at all. I've often wondered what I'd do if I couldn't find an albergue or a private room for the night. I think what I'd probably do is just continue walking, walk through the night, and then look forward in the morning to a large breakfast and some rest somewhere. Now, there's something we can learn in the film about safety and security on the Camino de Santiago. In a rather dramatic scene, Tom's bag is stolen outside a bar in Burgos. He gives chase along with his companions, yelling, "Hey, that kid stole my bag." But I have to say, I've never seen anything like that happening in real life. Of course, there are a few disreputable and dishonest people on the Camino, but we must be careful. In my experience, most people treat pilgrims kindly and with respect. And I think it would be in everyone's best interest, especially pilgrims, for them to treat everybody kindly and respectfully as well. In another scene where Tom is drunk and very angry, he asks, what does it take for someone to become a true pilgrim? He's upset still about the death of his son, and he asks, is it death? Is that what it takes to become a true pilgrim? Now, in terms of definitions, a pilgrimage is a trip, often a long one, to a holy place for religious purposes. Now, one of the things about the Camino is that you can do it for religious purposes, of course, but you can also do it for secular reasons as well. People go on the Camino just in search of something. They don't quite know what it is that they're looking for, but they might find it when they're on the road or later on when they return to their normal lives. But one thing's for sure, as the film states, the Camino is a very personal journey. It's something that you have to do for yourself. It's something that you have to experience in the hope that there might be some life-changing experience that happens. In the end, it's good to have a purpose and to keep an open mind. In a Hollywood-style tug-on-your-heartstrings moment towards the end of the movie, Tom and his companions are in a pilgrim's office in Santiago de Compostela. Now, the clerk asks Tom why he did the Camino. Tom comes up with the answer, I thought I should probably travel more. When Tom notices that his Compostela is written in Latin and that his name appears on it, he asks the clerk if he can get a new Compostela with Daniel's name on it. This is a rather odd request, and I think what Tom should really have done is to ask for the clerk to endorse Daniel's name on his own Compostela, and in that way both of the names would have appeared on the certificate. This is called doing the Camino Vacare Pro. A noticeable inaccuracy for me was the way in which the film shows pilgrims using their trekking poles. Just, in particular, has a very curious style at times where he seems to reach forward and scoop with both poles at the same time. This clearly isn't a good way to maintain balance or a way to keep your rhythm. I think there's a better way of using trekking poles, and I have a video up here where I explain the technique and illustrate it in various scenes. It's a cold, windy and overcast day, and the pilgrims are at the Cruz de Ferro. Each of them is holding a small stone in their hands that symbolizes their sins, which they wish to leave behind at the foot of the Iron Cross. Sarah is the first to move forward, and she tries to say aloud the traditional pilgrim's prayer at the foot of the cross, but her voice falters and she can't get through it. Next up is Tom, and he declares in a more confident voice, Lord, may this stone, a symbol of my efforts on the pilgrimage that I lay at the foot of the cross, weigh the balance in favour of my good deeds someday when the deeds of my life are judged. Let it be so. Tom kisses the stone and lets it fall to the ground. For me, I think this is one of the most touching and most memorable moments in the film, and it certainly brings back memories of when I tried to do the same. In the early parts of the film, we see Tom walking at a very fast pace, and Sarah says at one point, it's not a race. And indeed, it's not. But you do need a certain level of stamina and perseverance on the Camino if you're to get from one end of it to the other. Now, strength and perseverance are things that I think you can build up as you're going along, and you don't necessarily have to have all of those things in place before you get started. One thing's for sure is that by the end of the Camino you will be stronger physically and hopefully mentally and spiritually. Now, in closing, I know many people have been inspired by the film The Way. And I like it too. I like the cinematography and of course the scenery that is shown in the film. It's certainly entertaining and I'd give it 3 out of 5. But you know, there's no substitute for real experience, and I'd encourage everyone to try the Camino out for yourself, just to see how transforming it can be. Tom, the eye specialist, certainly ends up, I think, with a new way of viewing the world, and I think that's appropriate given that he is an eye doctor. Now, if you're interested in another source of inspiration about the Camino, I'll leave a link down here to a video that I have that's called 10 Lessons That We Can Learn from Paulo Coelho's book, The Pilgrimage. That's all I have for you now, and I wish you a buen camino, and I'll see you down the road. Bye.